It doesn't take a genius.
Ramsey.
I'm still just laughing about the picture you gave me for the background of today's topic. I believe you described it as an Italian blasphemy. Is that?
Oh, definitely. Yes, yes. There are Renaissance artists twirling in their graves at this moment. Well, I heard I didn't have time to get my outfit ready, but I heard it was a toga party.
Right.
And now that I look around, not so much.
Yeah, just a business casual party, as it turns out. Incidentally, my kid's favorite word to learn in Latin, toga. What's toga mean? Toga. There, you're done.
It's just one thing.
One thing. Anywho.
I like it. So what are we talking about today, sir?
Well, I have been thinking about where we are as a society, frankly, right now, and just how convoluted everything is, and I have set up HipSocket with this tagline of "Wrestle and Grow," and what I mean by that is growing, frankly, wrestling and growing with some ancient wisdom, a lot of it boiling down to what we at one point called the 7 liberal arts. Nowadays we say liberal arts college, it means something fairly different from what it originally meant. But if you thought of arts as sets of skills, and if you thought of liberal as in liberated, as in these are the sets of skills that once you master them, you are a free person. You are liberated. You will no longer be a slave to some sort of intellectual fad or to some sort of manipulation or even your own emotions because you've mastered these disciplines so well, these skills so well that you've progressed and you've grown. That's sort of what I'm getting at as what HipSocket's about. And so anyway, it just dawned on me that one of the terms that falls into this whole mix is a term that really gets abused nowadays. And I think we ought to set the record straight because it's something we should all want. And it's something that when we hear the word, we automatically get turned off in the modern era. So that's where I'm going with it today.
You've kind of scared me a little. And what pray tell is this word you speak?
Well, so HipSocket, we say that we want to wrestle and grow more organized, more confident, more influential, and that influential word is really a play off of one of the liberal arts, which is rhetoric. So I want to just very briefly talk about rhetoric, and when I say it, Mike, I mean just the reaction on your face kind of says it all. When I say rhetoric, what do you think of?
Oh, you think of very eloquently enunciated BS. That's what pops into my head. It's somebody who can speak eloquently, but it's probably just a bunch of malarkey that they're trying to feed you.
Yeah.
And pull the wool over your eyes.
And pull the wool over your eyes. There it is, right? There are pictures, videos even of Hitler, and he has just these crowds whipped into a frenzy. And we know it was evil, that the things he was talking about were truly evil, and yet he had this amazing power of persuasion over people, I guess you could say. Aristotle called rhetoric, finding the means of persuasion. But interestingly enough, he said that in a book that I believe was not even published. I think it was just in his library for his students. It wasn't something that sort of traveled the globe. That was like just sort of a private thing. So when we think of here's how I break it down is, when you think of Hitler or your favorite current BS politician and you're thinking rhetoric, a better word for that is sophistry. People that are wise seeming, that the sophists in ancient Greece would have been traveling around getting paid to sort of help people. I'm painting a very broad brushstroke, but they got paid to help people learn how to manipulate and appear wise and so on and so forth. And the philosophers, the philosophy meaning lovers of wisdom, sophist means the wise, but the philosophers are the lovers of wisdom. They're not claiming to be wise, but they want to help people get wise. Well, you can look at some of the dialogues of Plato, and there will be sophist characters in there who just get ripped to shreds once logic gets applied to the situation. And Socrates asks a few pointed questions, and the next thing you know, the sophist looks like an idiot. So I guess what I would try to do first off is just encourage everybody that when you think of rhetoric in the modern era, maybe think of sophistry instead of rhetoric, and then we can get on to what rhetoric really is. So does that make sense?
Well, no, I'm extremely excited to use the word sophistry
Right.
in a sentence with my friends, because that will go well. So yeah, I'll help you be on the forefront of reintroducing this word. I also, as you're speaking, what I figured out is I need to take rhetoric and I need to take persuasion and I need to take them out of this negative box that I have put them in. Right? I need to remove them from that. And as you said, liberate my mind around these two concepts, which I hope you can tell me, right, how this works, why it works. This would be very helpful.
And we're just going to take, a tiny, shallow little dive into this topic that, scholars have written books.
My mind is tiny and shallow.
Right. So it fits. It works, right?
Perfect.
But scholars have written books on this forever. So we're not doing a deep dive today, but here's a helpful way to think about it. A phrase from Cato the Elder, who was a famous rhetor in ancient Rome. And he said, the goal of this whole thing was a good man skilled at speaking. So it is about communicating. It most certainly is about communicating. But at the core of that, there's this thing about being wise and good enough to make good choices in that communication that you're having with the people around you. For the Romans, it was courts of law, it was the legislature, it was giving funeral speeches, honoring the dead. For us, it's customers, it's employees, it's the people in our community. So I love this idea of being a good man skilled at speaking, a good woman skilled at speaking, somebody who can communicate because there's some goodness at the core of what they're trying to accomplish, and not this selfish, can I strive and manipulate and get my way? There's a million people out there, Mike, that are more qualified to help people, spend their money so that they can figure out how to get their way. There's a ton of YouTube ads on how to be some sort of crazy influencer or whatever it is that you want to be. This is about you wrestling with ancient wisdom and growing as a person. So I don't know if I would be very curious for your thoughts on what resonates with you about that sort of change to the definition of rhetoric.
Well, one of the first thing I thought of is if you have good people who aren't good at communicating.
Yeah.
Right? I'm thinking of Gandhi's my message, my life is my message.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, and that's incredibly powerful in this day and age where you have the ability to reach so many people and where teams are so big. The ability to be a good person and also to be able to communicate your ideas becomes paramount.
Right. And notice how that's playing out right now. And this, some of our audience may not have a clue what we're talking about, but you have a college-age daughter and I teach a youth Sunday school class, but, cringe videos are a thing now. And people are they are on purpose trying to humiliate themselves in some form or fashion to get more views, some sympathetic, some not. It doesn't even matter at this point in our culture. We just if we can get more fame in that way and become somehow just that much further up in our power base of all the people we're influencing, that's literally what they're trying to do. And that doesn't have much to do, in my mind, with authenticity. There have been politicians through the ages who were wonderful communicators, who were very rustic and had a down-home way of talking, and it was authentic. And now we're talking about on purpose trying to come up with things that appear to be authentic so that we can get likes or, whatever it is we're trying to get for that particular social media platform. So I think you're 100% right.
Well, and I think people have a very finely tuned radar for this.
Yeah.
And so they know that if they've watched a person in the public eye or in a leadership role, this person hires a consulting team or a campaign manager or something, and then all of a sudden their persona completely changes.
Yeah.
And even though the persona is one that you would normally be drawn to,
Right.
the inauthenticity of I don't think that's really at the core of who they are.
Mm.
And so now you're repulsed even more. I may not like who you were, but at least I knew who you were, and I respected that you stood for certain things as you tried to like you used the word earlier, manipulate me into liking you.
Right. Well,
yeah, I'm completely skeptical.
And you and I see this. I mean, we talk about this all the time. We've shared clients over the years, and there have been various people in certain industries that we kind of know their type, and there are some folks that are just so good at this, and some folks who are really not. They just come across as phony. And rhetoric doesn't boil down to just authenticity. I don't want to paint too broad a brushstroke. But there are 5 canons, five skills that you master in classical rhetoric. And really that's a good segue to where we're headed with this. I just wanted to talk about the first canon, which is called invention. And that doesn't mean invention as in I'm going to invent something that I'm going to talk about or communicate. It's more like inventory. I'm going to come up with a list of all the things that could be said about this topic. And then I'll move into arranging them and skillfully communicating them. But if you think about it from the concept of invention, all the things that I need to know about this, well, there are some basic ways to do that. There are 5 that are sort of talked about, and 2 of them are worth highlighting here. One is definition. And I'll just use an example that we talk about in our line of work, which is customer loyalty. I need to get my people on board that we need more customer loyalty. Well, what do you mean by that? What is a loyal customer to you? And you introduced me to one of the most skillful ways to present this. It's frankly, it's measurable, which is food people. So could you talk about, it's easy to say customer loyalty. That sounds great. What the heck is that? You say, well, we're talking about food people. Could you explain the concept?
Yeah, it's a very sophisticated concept I stole from ancient Greece. No, I don't know where it came from. But the concept is simple. It is you have customers and you take such good care of them that these customers leave your place of business. They go home. They make little cakes and cookies and brownies, whatever their specialty is, pans of lasagna. And then they drive all the way back to the place of business and hand it to their favorite person, right? Be it their salesperson, the person who waits on them, whoever it might be, could be a manager. When you look at customer loyalty, there's no other greater sense of that. And I'm fond of asking the stores, that we work with, the businesses, do you have food people?
Yeah. And
they all go, yes. And then in some cases, because you're there and they've asked you there, they'll go, we do, but we used to have a lot more. So they've noticed this ebb and flow based upon how they do with the number of people who become loyal enough that they become food people.
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, what would we all look like if we had more food people? And they all say we'd need Jenny Craig, but we also have greater revenues, greater growth, less stress, less frustration, more referrals, right? Everything gets better.
Yeah.
And so it's just an idea, a way to get them to visualize who are the people who are so loyal to us that they go home and bring us goodies.
So what I just notice about that is that the store may not have defined it very well themselves, and the owner is asking for it. And in walks Mike Marshall and gives him a perspective he hasn't had before and forces him to learn a little bit about the topic he actually wants to bring to the table, the thing he wants to influence his people on. He had to learn a little bit more and think about it a little more deeply about, well, when I say loyalty, what I really mean is people who are so wired into us that they blah, 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 food, etc. So very quickly, once you said that, you couldn't stop yourself. You just kept talking and brought about the idea of, and if we had that, what would happen that's good for you and for me? So there's some element here where, this is, if I'm a business owner, hopefully I'm being a good man skilled at speaking. Hopefully I'm sharing this with my people as much for them as for me, and that we're all going to benefit from this. So I think that's an element here of what we're talking about.
Oh, definitely. And I think for the leaders that are listening, when we say good at communicating, I think we always, for some reason, we default to a platform with all our team spread before us, and we're
Yep.
beautifully enunciating all the vision, the mission, the purpose of the organization. If that's not you, that's fine.
Right.
We've dealt with leaders who are wonderful at that. I've got some. Remember, we put a guy up in front of his team one time, and I literally thought he would have a stroke. The vein was sticking out in his head, and sweat was pouring off of him. And lo and behold, we discovered that he is fantastic in small groups. 5, 6 people sitting around the table. He could share with passion, right, what he believed in the culture that he wanted to build. And so we took him out of that large group communication, and we put him into a series of small group communications. So there's, whether it's through your writing, there's many ways to do this. I don't want somebody sitting there thinking I have to be the greatest public speaker of all time, or this is of no value to me.
So one other aspect of this idea of invention, the canon of invention, as they call it, the skill of inventorying everything about this subject, is they're called the topics of invention. So definition is a topic of invention. Topic, again, not as in here's yet another topic in the subject, but topic as in like a topographical map. Like we're going to look at this from every perspective we possibly can. So definition is one way to do that. Defining food people as what we're talking about when we talk about customer loyalty. Another topic of invention is testimony. And I think this is the one that every single person listening to this podcast, all three of you, should really consider as a core part of what you do, whatever it is that you do, because you have so many people around you who can give you maybe not expert testimony, but maybe testimony of what's going on the front lines with the customer. Or maybe it's the customer letting you know what it's like in their shoes. I was working with a client this morning who has a tremendous business opportunity. It's already taking off. It's something the client came up with that he will sell, and it's going to make him money. And what he's realized through the course of this process is he knows he's got a good product, but he's not stopped to basically do a deep dive into the customer's perspective on this. And so he's circling back around to pick up every bit of learning he can from what the customer for this product is going to be basically needing from him. And then what's he going to do? He's going to be a good man, skilled at communicating, and he's going to go back to them and say, hey, you're concerned with X, Y, and Z. Here's how this product is going to address that. He might even change the product and say, wow, that's design thinking. I know, Mike, it's something you and I have talked about before with IDEO, the design firm. This is what can happen is we've learned so much that now we know how to even do this better, and we're going to adjust not just our communication, but the things that we do that we're communicating about. So those are two simple examples of how rhetoric can really help you completely, you'll have to wrestle, but completely grow as a result of entertaining these ideas and putting them into practice.
Oh, I love that. When you were talking, I thought of I had a store all male leadership team, about 15 men who were in charge of this particular organization. They got some feedback from the customers. Male customers thought that the facility looked fantastic. Female customers just trashed it on the survey, just said it was just an abysmal place. And they sat around for a good while speculating on what it was that maybe they were seeing. And then, being the highly paid consultant that I am, I said, hey, what if we go ask one? What if we found the female in the organization and asked? So we went and we gathered up all the females in the organization, brought them in the room and said, what's wrong with our facility? It was an avalanche. Yes. There's bugs in the light fixtures. That rug is 10 years old. You could see the threads. The towel machine fell off in the women's restroom 3 years ago. No one's put it back. It's just like, just this tsunami of I guess, testimony but we immediately knew, okay, here's this perspective. We had no clue. We could have spent another 100 years in that room guessing.
Right.
Without seeking answers from others, without seeking other viewpoints from all the different directions, we never would have figured it out.
Great example. And certainly you could go learn by getting expert, testimony and reading books and listening to podcasts, but go talk to your team. The cool thing about that, and I don't know that this is necessarily a philosophical concept or a liberal arts concept, but goodness sakes, it's so powerful to feel heard, and for your people to feel heard. There's a trust factor that goes up by a scale of 10 when that happens. So I think testimony is a really big deal in this whole setup that we're talking about.
Oh yeah, I'm impressed. I was sitting there thinking, okay, what are the ways that I've used this intuitively, and what are the ways that I could use this more intentionally? And just being more.
Therein lies the road.
Yeah. So
yeah, that's the real point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that what do you need to learn? What do you need to be open to? What are some ways that you can grow in your ability to communicate? And there's more on this. This is again just a surface level introduction to some of the concepts around rhetoric, but this is the kind of stuff that we really hope to introduce to your week. And so hopefully this is something you can take with you this week and put into practice. What can I go better define? What can I go gather testimony on that's going to help me have more influence, persuasion in the good sense with my people?
Mm-hmm. Well, it sounds a little bit like scientific inquiry.
Yeah.
So you can see kind of the parallels where you define and then go out and seek information. There's definitely parallels here. It's just on an intangible, tangible kind of way. So this has merit. This approach done methodically would probably lead to better decisions, better persuasion, more forward progress for an organization.
That's the hope.
Definitely. Good stuff. I'm excited to hear the next installment.
Yeah, we have a couple more of the liberal arts worth covering. The idea of growing more influential is one of the things we're doing, but we're also growing more organized and more confident. So we'll talk about those in the next couple episodes and give a little definition there and how they just are incredibly practical and help you. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned. All right, let's turn our attention to our announcer, see what he has to say, and hopefully there's a little ukulele music in my future.
So go ahead and tweet that, or share it any other way you want. As always, there are no rights reserved, no trademarks, no copyrights. Share it if you want to. And join us next time on It Doesn't Take a Genius.
That's good enough.